Good morning, everybody.
Slow down, oh stop.
I'm trying not to be too loud because I know some of you might have some sensibility issue this morning. No? Okay, so it's the last day already. Whoops. It's the last day already. Wow, it flew. Now, this morning, first let me thank Beer, that was the sponsor for our breakfast this morning. There was a mishap, just to say this. Yes, they were supposed to be yesterday's breakfast sponsor, and there was a misunderstanding on the day, so they're this morning, so I apologize to Beer for that misunderstanding. And of course, thank you for sponsoring a wonderful breakfast this morning. Day 3, the day of the wrap-up. What better fitting day to have a panel to do this? So to do this morning, I'll ask Natalie Roper to do the introduction of the panel this morning.
Well, we need to fix this for you too. Good morning. J'espère que vous avez toutes eu une belle soirée si vous avez été à Vieux-Montréal hier soir. So I hope you had a really great night last night. We need to fix this for you. Just wait, yeah. Oh, yeah, you have that. So to begin the morning, we have our panelists, and I'm going to allow Kara. She's going to be the moderator, and she'll be introducing all our partners this morning. So we thought this would be a great way to end our 3-day conference. And we have a very tight schedule today, so I'm going to let Kara get started. We have our next round of sessions at 10:30, and then everybody will come for the closing ceremonies at 11:45 till 12:30. So hopefully we'll still have some people in the room at that time. So I welcome Kara.
So I'm just going to check everybody can hear me okay? Can you hear me at the back? We've got lots of microphones happening over here, so I'm just going to move that away so I don't have feedback. So good morning. My name is Kara Kresik. I'm the Director of Co-op Career and Experiential Education at Brock University, and I've been asked to moderate the panel this morning with our Student Work Placement Program Employer Consortium. And you'll have to forgive the interchangeableness between SWPP and SWPP, as we've been calling it the last couple of days. We did a really quick change on some of the slides, but it probably will be used interchangeably, and sometimes the program formerly known as SWPP. So today the session is an opportunity to learn about the Student Work Placement Program from 7 current employer partners who share specifics about their program along with insights and learnings. The way we're going to do the panel today is we're going to have presentations after I go through just the basics of the program for anybody who does need kind of a quick refresher about the program itself. And then we're going to have presentations from each sector. Then we're going to take 1 or 2 questions for that individual presentation. And then at the end, we're hoping to have a dialogue so that the audience members can walk away with an enhanced understanding of each one of the programs and how they're being ran, the current features, and what they're looking for in the future. And they will share some success factors, some challenges, some learnings that they've had, and to be able to provide a platform to engage the audience. So we hope that that's going to be the most interactive way. And just again, we want to make sure that we're focusing on the individual programs that are ran by each one of the presenters so that you have an understanding about their programs. And if there's broader questions about the Student Work Placement Program, we can see if we can talk about it at the end, but we're really just trying to focus this individually on what's been currently done and some of the findings that they've had. So the Government of Canada, as we know, and we are very thankful for, announced in the 2016 budget that there was a one-time investment of $73 million over 4 years to better understand and prepare students for the world of work. This included new co-op and work integrating learning opportunities for students with a focus on high-demand fields such as science, technology, engineering, math, so STEM, and business, and partnerships between employers and post-secondary institutions to better align with what is taught to what happens in the world of work. And then in 2018, the government has increased its commitment to helping students by investing another $11.3 million over 3 years to create an additional 1,500 new additional work placements in cybersecurity and artificial intelligence to ensure Canadian students are at the forefront of these emerging global trends. So the whole program highlights really are to focus on helping SMEs as well to prepare students through using work-integrated learning. The open definition of WIL was really about making it easier for everybody. While we do know that a lot of it is focused on co-op, there is opportunity for longer opportunities or shorter opportunities outside of the co-op, the traditional co-op model. The WIL experience is tailored to the students and the employer's needs. And especially when we're dealing with a lot of SMEs, that creates a lot of dialogue as to what those needs are and then what the students' needs are with a very variety of positions. And there's a focus on business and entrepreneurship as well as STEM. And these students are at all level, and we all know how, with first-year students, for example, being one of the focus groups, so all levels for college, polytechnic, and university students. And the sector-based approach for more system impact. So those are just the quick highlights of the SWPP program. So just a little bit about the delivery approach. And I know yesterday when we had heard about the program and also how it was delivered, really understanding between the federal and the provincial guidelines and how delivering it through an employer consortia allowed for this to happen. So this is basically having third-party organizations that represent skills development and human resources of particular sectors. So as you can see here, that there's 3 partners. So the employers are really their responsibility to ensure quality work-integrated learning programming, to ensure that employers act as industry champions, and to help SMEs participate, which is one of the goals as we talked about, and helping that it reach audiences that perhaps it wouldn't have reached otherwise. The post-secondary institutions, it really was to promote and work with the students and the students within our institutions, and to collaborate with employers as well. I know many of us from the institutions work with our employers locally and talk about the program, and again, hopefully reach places that it hadn't reached in the past. And then students, obviously, to help them find relevant work-integrated learning opportunities, and then for them to provide some feedback on the program and the WIL placements. So this is a timeline, which I actually felt was quite helpful when I had seen this, is looking to see who the partners are and through which sectors and when they came along. So in May 2017, in the Information and Community Technology, we have Information and Communications Technology Council, so ICTC, Information Technology Association of Canada, ITAC. Within Aerospace and Aviation, we have the Canadian Council for Aviation and Aerospace, CCAA. Environment, we have Environmental Careers Organization of Canada, so ECO Canada. Biotechnology, Biotalent Canada. And then in October 2017, in mining, with the addition of Mining Industry Human Resources Council, MHHR. Entrepreneurship, we had Mars, and then Venture for Canada in November, and then in March 2018. In February 2018, within the financial services, the Toronto Financial Services Alliance, so TFSA, and electricity, Electrical Human Resource Council, EHRC. We love our acronyms, but it is very helpful to see them represented here. So within the SWPP guidelines, the objective really was to help drive systematic change effectively in aligning it with work that's required that we can see in particular industries across Canada, and to have these work-integrated learning programs targeted by program and have collaborative partnerships between the employers and the post-secondary institutions, obviously with the students' best interest at mind. And the funding was up to 50% of wages to a maximum of $5,000, and then for underrepresented groups to a maximum of, so 70% up to $7,000. And the groups, as we've heard before, being first-year students, newcomers, underrepresented populations, women in STEM, and persons with disabilities. So the other piece is really about who is doing what, and I know we went through this a little bit, but the employer partners is to administer the SWPP programs and the guidelines. And that will be, as each one of our guest panelists speak today, talk to you about how they administer that. And if you have questions, they will answer that as well. Develop new approaches to engaging and interacting with students. I know that a lot of dialogue has happened between how do I reach these students, how do I engage with them, and the post-secondary institutions are asking how can we reach your employers. Develop innovative will opportunities and collaboration, and I'm sure we'll hear some stories about that today, and provide feedback on the overall experience. For employers, focusing on small and medium enterprises, providing meaningful work experience again, and providing feedback. And students, the students are full-time, post-secondary education students, Canadian citizens, permanent residents, and refugee status, and legally entitled to work in Canada. So those are the parameters for the students who are involved in the Student Work Placement Program. So to go over our first year in and to talk about their experiences as they've gone through the past year, you will hear different approaches, and also keeping in mind when different organizations came on board to how the program was going. I think we all understand that the program moved very fast, and as we onboarded new members and new sectors, that it was kind of learning as we go, and we're all in that boat. So I think that understanding that and having an appreciation that this has been an amazing funding pot to help our students get these opportunities, and at the same time doing it very much in a fast-paced environment. And to repeat what Benoit had said yesterday, they move fast. So with that in mind, you will see different approaches, and that's where I think also where some of the questions come in, which you can ask about that individual sector and how that they're managing particular parts of the program. So today we have with us from BioTalent Canada, Pamela Gray, Director of Project Development. From Information Technology Association of Canada, so ITAC, we have Gina Van Dalen, who's the Executive Director of ITAC Talent. From the Canada Council for Aviation and Aerospace, we have Teresa Davis Woodhouse, Director of Project Management. From Environmental Careers Organization of Canada, Eco-Canada, we have Angie Hook, who is the Director of Marketing and Customer Engagement. And then from the Information and Communications Technology Council, we have Sarah Storm, who's the program coordinator, Education and Initiatives from the Will Digital team. From the Mars Discovery District, we have Lavish Benjia, who is the Senior Program Manager, Talent Development and Work Integrated Learning. And for Venture for Canada, we have Gina Patterson, who is the Director for Atlantic Canada Internship Programs. So to start us off, Pamela is going to give her presentation, and then we'll have 1 to 2 questions, depending on how long the question takes. And then from there, we'll move down, actually in the order that they're seated. And then we can have a discussion about the programs after as well. And they actually have some questions for the audience. So we're hoping to have a bit of a dialogue and discussion in that regard. So Pamela.
Well, it's such a pleasure to be here today and to share more information about BioTalent Canada's SWPP or SWPP program. For those of you that don't know, BioTalent Canada is a national, not-for-profit industry association that focuses primarily on HR strategies for the bioeconomy. For those of you who know the term, we're actually a former sector council. And the bioeconomy is very large across Canada and consists of 4 different subsectors. I'll go through them very quickly, and you'll be able to see them on this slide here. So the biggest sector for us, or subsector for us, is certainly the biohealth sector. That consists of pharmaceutical companies as well as medical devices. The second subsector, bioenergy, which would consist of companies that really deal with biodiesels, ethanols, methanols. And then we move into bioindustrials, biosolvents, for example. And then the fourth subsector would be the agrobiotech. So this would be animal and plant genetics. And The role of BioTalent Canada is really to ensure that the industry has access to skilled labor, because we want to make sure that the industry is as competitive and is really thriving. So we do this in a number of different ways. The first way would be that we have a really robust partnership network that allows us access to thousands of bioeconomy companies across Canada. We have 50 corporate partners, and these would consist of organizations such as provincial and national industry associations, as well as employers across Canada, and we have 15 academic post-secondary partners as well. Another thing that we do is we conduct a lot of labor market research. So our goal is really to find out what the HR challenges are within the industry, some of the skills deficits that the industry faces, and then our job is then to try and alleviate those challenges. Once we find out what those challenges are, we partner with the federal government to find out whether or not there may be projects such as SWPP that can help to alleviate these challenges. So BioTalent Canada was one of the first 5 organizations to deliver this program, SWPP, and we started this back in May 2017. So we're actually in the middle of our 2nd year of SWPP. And our goal is to provide 1,000 subsidized co-ops for STEM and business students across Canada, within the bioeconomy, of course, within the next 4 years. For us, the average length of time for the co-op subsidy would be 4 months. And our goal really is to make sure that these are new co-ops. So these are co-ops that are over and above what an organization would typically do in a year. We've had incredible success with this program to date. Obviously, the spots have gone very, very fast. We're about the halfway mark, so we're almost at capacity for our 2nd year. So we have about 500 students currently in the program. But just to take a look at some of the statistics so far, a month ago, so June 30th, we had 431 individuals in our program. And the breakdown is interesting. 403 of our students were actually from university STEM and business programs, while 28 students were actually from the college level. In terms of the breakdown, in terms of underrepresented talent groups, 58% of our students were members of an underrepresented talent group, meaning that they were women, persons with disabilities, Indigenous people, newcomers to Canada, which means 5 years in Canada or less, or they were first-year students. And to further break that down, 55% of all of our students were female, 7% of our students were first-year students, 2.5 were Indigenous, 2.1 were persons with disabilities, and 1% were newcomers. So this next slide really gives you the distribution of placements across Canada, and you'll see that we actually have a wide number of placements across Canada, with the exception of Saskatchewan, which we're working on. And if you look, actually, the greatest numbers really are concentrated in the hubs where the bioeconomy is focused. So the largest majority of our students come from Ontario, which is obviously the largest part of the sector, followed by British Columbia, and then the Quebec region. We've been very successful. We've involved many different post-secondary institutions. In year 2 alone, we've been able to work with 47 different post-secondary institutions. We also survey all of our students once they've completed their co-op program, so we can fully understand the benefits of the SWPP program to them. And we're really pleased to say that 97% of students felt that they were now in a better position to secure employment now that their SWPP program is finished, which is phenomenal. That's what we want. On the employer side, we've had over 200 employers participate in this program to date across Canada, which is phenomenal. 100% of those employers said they were satisfied with the performance of their students, so kudos to you, of course. 99% felt that they wanted to maintain their partnerships with their post-secondary institutions. So they want to engage with you going forward as well. And 98% indicated that they really wanted to participate in this program again. 73% of our employers that were surveyed said that their co-ops wouldn't actually exist without the SWPP program, which is fantastic. Only 20%, or just under 20%, said that yes, they were new co-ops, but they would have been created anyway. So as you can see, lots of successes with Biotalent Canada's SWPP program. In terms of challenges, obviously the first year of any program is a bit difficult, getting the processes in place and fully understanding, the impact, educating employers, educating post-secondary institutions, and really educating the students as to the application process and the eligibility. That takes some time. For us, I would say the biggest challenge has been the administration in terms of paperwork. We started this program with paper. It was manual. So we've really had to streamline our processes quite a bit so that it's more efficient and quicker. And the one thing that we definitely want to do going forward is we want to increase the mix of our underrepresented talent groups. We want more persons with disabilities participating, more newcomers, as well as more Indigenous people. So that's our program in a nutshell.
Thank you, Pamela. So we have some time for one or two questions. We've got a question over here. I think we're doing, Jan, can you go with the microphone? So in the middle here, I had seen a hand. If we don't get to you at this time, just write your question down so you don't forget it, and we'll make sure that we do get it. And then Nora.
Yes, good morning. Louise Ménard, Université de Sherbrooke. At this moment, the French part of your website says that the applications are closed for co-ops 2018-19. Is that true?
Yes, at this point, we're almost at capacity. We are going to be looking at accepting our new applications for the 2019-2020 year, and that will probably happen around February.
Okay, thank you.
And Nora, over here.
Good morning, Pamela. Good morning.
Sorry, where am I?
Right down here.
Hi. Good morning. My name is Nora McRae from the University of
Nora.
Victoria. Thank you very much. This is really, really great information and so encouraging that it's been so successful. Clearly a great program. I have a specific question. In addition to the money that you receive for providing wage subsidies for the students, there's also additional money for some projects around improving student capabilities and that kind of thing, amongst others. And I believe that Biotalent has been working on some curriculum development around some skills gaps that you've identified. Could you speak a little bit about what your plans are around that?
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. So for us, we really have two projects in one. So the first piece of the project is the co-op piece. We call that Stream 1. And Stream 2 is about working with post-secondary institutions and also industry, bringing them together to determine where there may be some misalignment in terms of the curriculum. So we've been successful in bringing these groups together twice now to have some really, really good discussions as to maybe some of the areas that need to be enhanced, some areas of curriculum that need to be enhanced. And we have a curriculum developer, Jen Arnold, who's right here in the yellow, and she has been engaging with post-secondary institutions across Canada and of course industry, like I said, to try and really determine what those things are. And what our goal is to create modularized curricula that will then offer post-secondary institutions for free. So that little pieces that you could probably pop into your programming that will help alleviate the problem.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. So again, if you didn't get your question too, write it down and we will hopefully get to it at the end when we have more time for questions. So next, we will welcome Gina to present on ITAC.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see that really reflective of the success that we've had with this program. I'll just give you a little bit of information first on the Information Technology Association of Canada. Can everybody hear me? Yeah? Is it on? Okay, let's move this up. There you go. Is this better? Yeah, I think it is. Hello? Yep, there we go. So ITEC has been around for about 60 years. We are the business association in Canada for ICT companies. So our organizations basically are the tech companies in Canada, the big Microsoft, Bell, what have you, the large blue chip companies, but also a large number of small, medium-sized organizations. We have our main area of business has been traditionally sort of government relations, shaping policy, helping our organizations basically to have a voice at the government level, the federal government level mainly. But we also have gotten into talent, and we have a major health division as well. All in an effort, of course, to stimulate the economy, to make sure that there's innovative programs and that we help our industry basically become very successful. We started this program, just trying to look at the slides here. Yeah, we started this program in 2014 in May, and started with basically working with a select number of programs. Business technology management, maybe some of you are familiar with that. It's offered around 30 campuses across Canada right now, but also interdisciplinary programs in business and technology. Computer science, computer engineering, software engineering, so really the whole bailiwick of computing essentially, both at the undergraduate level but at the college level, where they're typically called computer systems technology programs. And then we had a specific focus on cybersecurity and AI. As we just heard from Kara, we have now received actually additional placements in those two areas. They're really the hot areas at the moment in emerging technologies. There's another 1,500 students that can be placed over the next 3 years, I would say. Yeah, just a little bit about sort of our program with regards to sort of the success and where we are right now. The collaboration that we've had with partners has been tremendous, and just a shout out to organizations like Seneca and Centennial and Ryerson. We started in Ontario to get our feet wet, basically, and of course, Seawell been very instrumental in helping us really shape our program. As we just heard, it was quite a complex undertaking, lots of different procedures, policies, in addition to the ones that we got from the government, and really was instrumental working with them to shape that program. So we started in Ontario with that program and then slowly rolled it out to other jurisdictions. We also had a partnership with Magnet. Some of you may be familiar or even using Magnet. They really helped us not only with connecting with employers, creating the ability basically to have employers connect with multiple schools at the same time. This is a great platform for that. But also doing targeted messaging to our students. The students would basically go through your Orbis or Simplicity system, sign up through the Magnet platform, and we would be able to develop targeted messaging to them rather, especially when it comes to making them aware about learning opportunities, for example. It was a great way for us to do that. Very much working with employer organizations. We really try to expand the number of employers, especially at the SME level, to get to know this program. So working with organizations like the Chambers of Commerce at the entrepreneurship level, the DMZ, so the incubators and accelerators, Digital Nova Scotia, so very sort of geographically specific organizations, and Réseau Action, and of course the CEGEPs as well. So the partnerships have, as I said, been really instrumental for us to move this program along. On the point that we just heard about the I guess additional activities that we would do to provide services basically to students. So there's a number of things that we did in that regard. Next slide here. So there's a variety of activities basically that we undertook to really elevate that. So of course everybody has a website, but we also did a strategy of digital tools. We now have a mobile app actually that is working with Magnet. We also do the meetup-style entrepreneurship workshops that we facilitate through seminars, webinars, and we have seven sections across 7 cities across Canada where we now have cohorts of students that are in this program and facilitating sessions, entrepreneurship workshops for them. We have a conference scheduled for November the 13th. It's our Explore STEM Youth Conference, which will talk about WIL and ICT-related matters. We also just finished a best practices WIL toolkit, really to help employers sort of understand the complex process, basically, of hiring a student, holding their hand through the process, and really the things that you guys all do, basically, for employers. It's captured in a neat little toolkit that's available from our website. And then finally, the issue we've been looking at for quite some time now is the whole sustainability issue of this program. $73 million, 4 years, and so we're trying to really get a better understanding what happens after that. So we've started discussions with organizations like Be Her. There's a conversation tomorrow, apparently, on Thursday, that's going to explore what this program will look like beyond 2021. So it's a very exciting discussion. Our numbers, first year in as well, I think very similar to what you will hear from the other partners. We really, I think there's a slide missing. Nope, there is not. Sorry, there's a chart missing. We really made because ICT is everywhere, it's across every sector, it's across every province and territory in Canada, so we really made a concentrated effort to make sure that there was an equal distribution of numbers. So we went to StatsCan, basically looked at population, and basically based our target numbers on that. So, and unlike some of the other organizations, we don't do a first come, first serve. Ours is really based on trying to meet as best as possible those target demographics, or sorry, those targets. So what you can see from the chart, our big area, of course, is Ontario, followed by Quebec, BC, Alberta, and similar to BioTalent, we have very low numbers in Saskatchewan and Atlantic areas, but we're really trying to work with our partners in those geographic areas to pump up those numbers, essentially. Very similar numbers with the female versus male, which is 77%. Our males, 23% females, where we have some challenges in our target demographics are in attracting students from the Indigenous communities and persons with disabilities. Those were the areas you see there are specific target areas that were identified by the government that we really should try to get more students in. It's been a bit of a challenge, to be honest with you. From a university versus college placement, the majority are coming from the universities. 272 in our case, and 38 from the colleges. And then, of course, we have about 261 employers that we worked with in the last year. So overall, it's been a very good year. We've met our targets, which is most important, I think. Successes and challenges. So again, echoing the comments you'll hear today, a very successful program. It really was, you will build it, and they came in large numbers. And so we had significant employer and student interest. We've, I think, all met our quotas for this year, so we're all full, unfortunately. The collaborations with our partner organizations has been one of our major successes. Very positive placement and placement feedback from students and employers through surveys. Really hearing comments of if we wouldn't have had this program, we wouldn't have been able to do this project. And so it's been very, very successful. Some of the challenges, as I mentioned, securing Indigenous and persons with disabilities for placements. Also the inability to place foreign students. A lot of you probably have foreign students in programs. Especially it was an issue for us because there's a very high number of foreign students in computing programs. So it would be great if we could sort of talk to the government, and we've already started that debate actually with them, to see whether or not there are some accommodations that can be made to allow these students to actually take advantage of this program as well. So far the discussions have been pretty positive. I think there's some movement there. Some challenges we had to identify non-co-op students. This is a WIL program, Work Integrated Learning, which is a broader spectrum of work experiences. So co-op is fairly easy. You guys all do a great job in identifying who those students are, but we're just having a bit of a difficult time connecting with the non-co-op students. So the Magnet platform actually is helping us sort of facilitate that. And then in terms of opportunities, partnerships, really broadening our reach, and we're working with Indigenous centers and schools that have larger numbers of Indigenous students, specifically in ICT programs. We're also working with Discoverability Network, which is a Magnet initiative. It's only available in Ontario, but they have a large number of persons with disabilities actually that self-identify within their network. So we're trying to work with them, and of course the ongoing partnership with Magnet today. So that, in a nutshell, is what our program is about. I hope I didn't go over my time.
That's good. So we probably have time for... So is there a question from the audience that somebody wants?
Yes?
They're racing to you. Whoever gets you first.
Thank you for your presentation. Robert Wooden with Dalhousie University.
Hi.
I'm thinking by the first two presentations, I'm interested in the statistics by province. It's unclear to me if the statistic speaks to the location of the job or the source of the student. So as example, 50% of business students at Dalhousie work in another province that is not Nova Scotia. So it's probably a comment that applies to everyone. So your statistics are where the job is my assumption?
They're geographic specific. So if you see, whatever, 20 in eastern provinces, those are actually students that live and work and go to school in that province. Yeah. So they're not students that are being, that go out, that work, that have a school assignment, for example, at Dalhousie and work in Ontario, for example.
Okay, so it's by student.
It's actual students.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. So again, we have one more. Sorry, I didn't know.
One more. Good morning, and thank you for the presentation. Dario Aguishini from George Brown College. I noticed that you mentioned that you were working with Seneca, Centennial, and other colleges on this initiative. However, the college representation was pretty low, 15% overall. My question to you is, what can we do as colleges to promote this program within the college community? What are we not doing today that is not well represented?
Good question. Thank you. It really, because we have low numbers, for one, we only have 1,000 placements approximately over the 4 years. And we try to get the information out there through various forums that we deal with within the colleges. CWIL is one of them. Now, a lot of colleges are not part of CWIL, so they're not getting the communication. So we're trying to work through organizations like Polytechs Canada, or the organizations that represent the colleges, to really get the word out there about this program. Maybe it's, I don't know what the reason is why there's low numbers for colleges. Maybe it's the reluctance to apply because of the low numbers. There's still a level of engagement, a level of work that's required to go through the whole process of placing the student. And maybe that's what's holding them back. Maybe you can talk to your colleagues about that, but it's definitely something we can look at going forward, that we can maybe bump up those numbers, because essentially if you look at where the program or WIL sort of started, basically it started in the colleges and polytechs, and the universities have sort of more newly adopted it. So yeah, we had expected higher numbers from colleges, but it just hasn't been coming. So I'm not sure whether that's a story that's similar to with others.
Could be the length of time of the placement as well.
4 months, yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so if your question didn't get answered, then if you can put it, we're just doing 2 per, just so we make sure that we get through. So, great, thank you. Thank you, Jana. We now have Teresa is going to be presenting for the Canadian Council for Aviation and Aerospace.
Good morning. Thank you everybody for coming to our presentation today. So I'm with the Canadian Council for Aviation and Aerospace, and is that okay? I'm shorter. Okay. Hi, so I'm Teresa Davis-Woodhouse with the Canadian Council for Aviation and Aerospace, and we're a national partnership not-for-profit organization. Our focus is on labor market information, on skilled labor, ensuring there's enough skilled labor for the industry to grow. And we also do accreditation of different college programs for aviation-specific programming. Most of the sectors that we deal with are very aviation, aerospace specific, obviously. So we deal with flight operators, aircraft maintenance, and aerospace manufacturing. Those are our main sectors. So for our program, obviously, the employers have to be aviation and aerospace companies offering quality work integrated learning placements. The first thing we did was reach out to all of the colleges across Canada that offer aviation-specific programming, specifically aircraft maintenance technicians and avionics. We underestimated employer demand for this project. So like everybody else, or close to everybody else, it was an overwhelming demand from employers. And in year 1, we were able to place a couple extra students. So we had 130 students placed, and in year 2, we have 229 students, and we are full for this year. Typically, so our process so far, because of the overwhelming demand from employers, has really been employer-driven. Employers come to us typically with a student already in mind. We started as well with all of our forms sort of manual, just to get the hang of it. Everything's online now, so we encourage employers to go online, fill out the application, but until they have a student, we can't actually approve that, because we have to make sure that the student is suitable for the program. We also put in place contracts and work learning development guidelines that have to be followed, and at the end we also follow up and do a quick survey to see how everything's gone. I haven't brought our stats with us for the across Canada numbers, but I can tell you that right now a good deal of our placements are in Ontario, because that's one of our clusters, in Montreal and in BC, again, because that's where our clusters are, that's where our jobs are. We have a few in the East Coast, but not as many as we would like. There is industry in the East Coast, but it's not as large a sector as the other clusters, but we would like to work more targeted with the East Coast going forward. If anybody here is from the East Coast colleges, excellent. We really would like to increase participation going forward on the East Coast, and we've been working through our associations, our regional associations, and all the provincial associations, so feel free to contact us directly. All right. So we have a stream 1, which is our co-ops and our internships, but we have a stream 2 of this program as well. And our stream 2 is the development of a new curriculum, a multidisciplinary technician program curriculum. So industry said that it needs a more multidisciplinary worker, somebody with a broader range of skill sets. And ours is a regulated industry, and our students go on to write a license test with Transport Canada. So it is a regulated industry, so it's a little different. We have a consortium of stakeholders involved in the development of this new curriculum, and we're looking to teach competencies in 3 different trades, which is aircraft maintenance technicians, avionics, and interiors. This new curriculum is going to include structured work terms, work integrated learning, business skills, soft skills, which are just about finished in the development stage, and a mentoring program. In our first year, 89 of our placements were part of this program. And in our second year, 120 placements were part of this program. This is very new for our industry because these type of programs, the aircraft maintenance technicians and avionics, are college-level programs that typically don't have a work integrated learning component. So this is very new for this programming. To date, Fanshawe College actually is the only program across Canada that has a co-op program for their aircraft maintenance technicians. So this is very new and very exciting for industry, and the students are absolutely loving it. As you can see, the photo here is a graduation, so to speak, of the students from their first year-long work integrated learning program. So in between their first and second year of college, a good portion of them are from Centennial College, some are from Fanshawe, came and worked at various flight operators in Ontario and Quebec and BC. And this is a group picture of them kind of graduating. And so we also did a nice debrief. We have somebody, a project manager, placed there for a couple weeks who actually did a debrief with all of the students and their coaches to see how we can better the program. So the students have a coach. It's a 5-to-1 ratio. So for every 5 students, there's one coach working with them and helping them through. And it's a very excited group of students who are going to go back and be ambassadors for the program. They're wearing their uniforms to school when they go back, and they'll be spokespersons for the program to introduce the new students into it. So our successes for this program really have been the development of collaborative partnerships between aviation employers and PSEs that have not been there before. So our programs, again, have not had this type of work integrated learning. It's very exciting for our industry. We've done a lot of LMI studies that report back that what is missing is those hands-on skills in our students, whether they're technicians or engineers, that they're not coming into the workplace with those hands-on skills. And this program is giving them the opportunity to work on leading-edge equipment, on new equipment, on proprietary equipment, and not just what the colleges can afford, because unfortunately, in our industry, the equipment that they work on is incredibly expensive, and it's not available at the college or university level. And they really need to get into the workplace in order to get these hands-on skills. And this program has allowed that in our industry. Our challenges has been placing females participants. Now, we come from a sector where only 30% of our workforce is female. And at the technician level, it's really only about 7% at that. And for pilots, it's even less. But so for our technicians to be able to place females they're not going into the college program to begin with, so it's harder to get them into this placement. So that's a challenge for our industry that we're looking at through other projects. But 10% of our placements to date are female students in STEM, so to us, that's a success. I know it's not as large a number as everybody else, but in our sector, that's pretty good numbers. Our other challenge, of course, is reaching out to underrepresented groups. And if the audience has any suggestions on that, we'll take that. Again, because mostly our positions are being filled, the ones that aren't part of the multidisciplinary tech program, are being filled at an employer demand level. So the employers are coming to us with their students in mind. So if there's a way to reach out to other types of students, underrepresented students, we'll certainly be up for suggestions on that and partnerships on that. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Questions from the group?
Excellent.
There's one up here, the back there.
Hello, I wanted to have a more clearer understanding. Is your program geared towards technicians for the internship part?
Our Stream 2, our multidisciplinary technician is geared toward technicians. That is a technician type program. But our other, the Stream 1, our typical co-ops and internships, we've gotten quite a few actually aerospace engineers. So those ones have been open to a broader range of students, and most of the uptake have been at the engineering level.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions at this time?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Teresa. So next, if we could welcome Angie from, sorry, I need my glasses, Environmental Careers Organization of Canada, Eco-Canada. Thank you.
All right. Just make sure, can you guys hear me? Oops. Oh, I'm even shorter, so. Great, thank you. All right, thanks everyone. I'm pleased to be here on behalf of Eco-Canada. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, we are a career support organization. We train and certify environmental professionals, and we have a host of different kind of programs and services that what we try to do is sort of take somebody through the progression of their career journey, leveraging the different tools and resources that we have. So we do some programs for Indigenous training sort of at the high school level, and then with this co-op program we're now having a little bit more of a touch point with university and college level individuals, and then we also offer a range of programs once you've graduated to sort of help hone those skills and specialize in various areas of the sector. We were really thrilled to be able to participate in this program as it does increase the resources we have available for student level individuals, and it kind of helps to bridge that gap in terms of giving them that work experience they have before they've graduated. Our labor market research indicates that in the next 8 to 10 years, almost 1 in 4 professionals will be retiring. So that's a pretty significant gap. And our objective is to try to fill that gap with highly trained people. The strategy to meet year 1 objectives was incremental in nature. We wanted to roll it out slowly and give us sort of an idea of projections and insights that we could use for year 1 and beyond. So having said that, we started with our accredited institution partners first. Just to kind of test the waters, see what type of demand there would be, the type of job titles that we could be looking for, and of course where those opportunities were across Canada. It was very successful. We actually we found that we had a lot more demand versus availability, as I think everybody else here would agree. This led us to kind of how do we target, how do we kind of hone in on where we can provide the best experience for the students. So we launched sort of a cross-Canada university tour to talk to various institutions and present our ideas and kind of talk to them about where there would be the biggest opportunities. So we had a pretty successful year. We had about 458 placements to date. We actually went over a little bit our target for the first year, and currently we're sitting at about 202 active placements. We're saving about 40, just over 40 placements for the fall winter, and kind of hoping to kind of hone in a little bit more on those underrepresented groups for that particular area. So of course the challenge that we have now is just keeping up with the demand. So as you can see, the breakdown of kind of a little bit of our stats, majority of our placements are located in BC, Ontario, and Alberta. This, of course, is where we see the biggest demand for environmental jobs. Our matched placements, this sort of gives you a bit of a trend of what we did over the last year, and it spikes quite a bit in December, aligning a lot with the PSCs and where they were, their timing of onboarding co-op students. We stopped making matches this spring. As I said, we're trying to hold some of those positions for the fall. And both genders we found had equal interest in environmental type roles, so it's fairly even split between male and female, which is nice to see. We also generated an adequate start to our Indigenous participation. We've got about 3% right now, and our goal is to hit 6%, but we're fairly happy with that result for year 1, and we're working with different partnerships across the country to try and build that number up as well. So learnings to date, I'm kind of just going to highlight the top 3. I'm not going to go through every single one on here. Some of them are pretty self-explanatory, but many of the students commented that they appreciated the change to gain real experience and affect change. A lot of people choose a career in the environmental industry because they have a passion, or there's some type of personal cause that's leading them to go into that particular sector. Many also said that it gave them a chance to explore roles that they may not have considered if it wasn't for this program. So I think it's helping for them too to see visually, what their career path could look like once they've graduated. We even had a few that were offered full-time jobs as a result, so that's also very good to see. The employers are really leveraging this to kind of mold, I guess you will, the candidates to how they want them trained for their particular organization. In terms of challenges, we felt the biggest was the speed at which the placements are matched versus the available funding. How we roll out our marketing campaigns, how we evaluate positions that fit within the eligibility criteria, and how we manage participant expectations are all affected. So that kind of has a trickle-down effect that we're trying to manage. However, in terms of opportunities, there are things that we're learning from talking to employers. The biggest one, I guess, would be the gap in soft skills. Though the technical knowledge is fairly strong and the employers feel that they have the practical know-how to complete the job, there are some significant gaps when it comes to things like business communications, project management, technical writing, things like that. We found that specifically with small to medium-sized businesses, it's much higher of a risk for them to consider keeping that person on full-time without the development of those soft skills, because they're lean and they're trying to kind of cover multiple hats with one role. They really want somebody that can onboard fast, quick, train them, and that they can also become an asset very quickly to the organization. So that is a gap that we're seeing specifically with the smaller companies. The larger employers have obviously more resources at their disposal, so it's less of a risk for them. In terms of sort of tackling that, we do have a mentorship program that we currently offer for graduates as part of our EP certification. It's something that we're kind of looking at as well, though, for students, because we feel that having that connection with a mentor, someone who's already been in the field for a number of years, can help to bring to light some of those areas that they can be working on. I was actually speaking to a student up in Whitehorse, and he said that yes, they provide a lot of onboarding training and it's great, but now, for them to consider looking at him for full time, they want to know that he can take a soil sampling test and report and turn it into something that the client sees of value. So that's was, I think, the biggest insight we saw from the program is they're all loving it, they're getting the experience they need, but we have some work to do there. So I think that's about it for me. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Any questions? We've got Doug.
Hi, Doug Gallant with Dalhousie University. It's a question for you, but it's really for everybody, which is to address the comment that you made on the skills gap. I'm wondering what support system you're all putting in place for supervisors at the SME level to encourage them to properly be able to have the skills themselves to mentor, coach, teach the profession to the students that they're hiring.
Good question. So as I mentioned, the EP certification program we offer, we not only onboard junior professionals as sort of a way for them to cultivate the type of specialization they want to work on in the sector, but it's also geared towards senior professionals. And so we match the senior professionals with a junior person. Typically, we're looking at people that have at least 5 years experience, and we look at their areas of specialization, what kind of role they're doing to kind of make sure that that match is going to be one that's successful.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Louise Ménard, Université de Sherbrooke. I'm here representing also environmental programs in the University of Sherbrooke, which are renowned. Also, Université du Québec à Montréal has environmental studies master degrees. So when I see the numbers you have, only 22 placements in Quebec compared to 147 in Ontario. And you mentioned that's the availability of the positions or the jobs. I would enhance the fact that the website of Eco-Canada was not translated in French for the co-op part until very recently. So it's just a precision on your data. So I think there would have been more placement coming from Quebec with very qualified students in both undergrad and graduate levels if the employers would have been able to access the website in French.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up.
So
I thought it was translated, so I
it
will
is
talk
now.
to the...
I just checked this morning, actually.
Okay.
It is now, but for the whole period of applications for summer, we ended up having, from your part, actually, Eco-Canada, paper forms for the employers. So this has been a little more difficult, I think, for the French-speaking part of Canada for application.
Appreciate your comment. We know that our French is less strong than our English. We have onboarded several bilingual contractors as well to support.
Yes, and actually I want to appreciate the fact that there are people able to talk to our people in the PSCs and also employers speaking French at Eco-Canada, but we had a little deal of a problem with that at the beginning of the program.
Growing pains, right?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Angie. So now we'd like to welcome Sarah from ICTC.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to take this rare opportunity to first thank everybody here because the success of these programs are really a collaborative effort, and they wouldn't be successful if it weren't for all of the work that you guys do in your co-op offices. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to say that, and also to thank the organizers because it's been fantastic to get some faces to all the emails, inquiries that I answer, and telephone calls. So that's been great as well. So for those who don't know, ICTC, we're a national center of expertise for the digital economy in Canada, and with the vision of strengthening Canada's digital advantage. And so we have a team of researchers that do forward-looking research in the digital economy in terms of talent and Canada's global competitiveness. And we take that, the research, and create policy advice and also capacity building programs. And that's really important because that's the founding of Will Digital. So the focus areas for Will Digital, the emerging sectors such as intelligent retail, fintech, advanced manufacturing, AI, cybersecurity, they're all where we expect there to be a lot of growth. So we're trying to put students into the sectors where there's expected to be a lot of growth. So we're placing students in the jobs of tomorrow. In terms of our process, we try and be very student-centered. One way we do this is through our learning plan. We have a collaborative learning plan where the employer and the student sit down together. They both have to sign off on it. They're exploring the goals of the student along with the goals of the employer, and earmarking the skills that the student will learn throughout the placement. And then the employer also has to identify all the activities that relate to those skills and the supports that they're going to put in place in order to help the student succeed. And we do have, in the last cohort, we had over a 95% satisfaction rate from students. So we believe that this is really, it is really working, so that's great. We try and make the program very fast and efficient. Our application, it takes employers on average 20 minutes, students maybe 10 minutes. And then throughout the whole process, there's a quick midterm check and a final evaluation. Everything's made and thought of the value of time. Our program, we do a lot of one-on-one programs with the with employers, and this is in order to increase access across the smaller SMEs. But then we also have partnerships with larger larger companies that have the capacity to hire more students and to explore innovative ways to integrated learning into the workplace. So an example of that is the cooperators. We have a partnership with them. They have an AI hub, and it's almost all entirely staffed by students. We have some partnerships with educational institutions like Carleton, who's here, the partnerships are really, we're either exploring an innovative work integrated learning model, something that's different and thoughtful, or we're looking at the sector. So a good sector example of our partnerships is our FinTech Collaborative, in which we have 15 FinTech companies who have signed on to be part of the collaborative, and we're providing extra micro-learning sessions to the students, and they'll get a certificate at the end if they complete all the micro-learning sessions. Everything's accessible online, so it's all, we try and make sure everything's very easily accessible by both the students and the employers. And the other thing that we've done through the program is we've done some industry research. So because we're dealing with emerging sectors, sometimes it's hard to define them. And so just to understand, we've done a bit of research in understanding FinTech industry, intelligent retail, and advanced manufacturing, and understanding the talent and the skills that's required and what employers are looking for. So what skills that the companies have now, the people that are working in there, and so what skills do our students need to move forward. So in terms of our numbers, we are on track to filling up for this year. However, our applications are open. So I think we're one of the rare ones that actually has spots left. So feel free to direct companies to our website, which is up there. In the first year, we exceeded our numbers and thankfully got some extra funding by 25%. And we are national in scope. So while like the other organizations, a lot of our placements are Ontario and BC, we do have some numbers from Quebec and the eastern provinces, and we're working to increase those numbers as well. We do fill up our underrepresented, but just like everyone else, it's mostly women in STEM and first year, so getting more persons with disability and Indigenous populations into our programs is also a priority for us. In terms of learning to date, getting our forms right, getting the questions very clear was extremely important, and it also, like, getting the questions clear and concise really helps speed up the process. Developing partnerships and relationships have been key for the success of the program. Getting a great learning plan in place, things like that, really impacted the success of the program. I think that's it.
We will make, I believe we'll be able to make slides available, so if you didn't take a picture, we can get the address or stop by the booth. Any questions you have for Sarah?
I know I spoke to a lot of you one-on-one at my booth, so with Juhi. Go ahead.
Thanks very much, Sarah, and also really appreciate the shout out to the group here, because everyone in this room has worked very hard to try and make this be successful. And also a big thank you to Benoit and Sarah for their work, because without your vision, this wouldn't have happened. Yeah. What struck me in your comments, and it's just a general thought, is each one of you, and I'm sure the remaining two presenters will identify some interesting innovations and initiatives that you've come up with as a result of your work in this space. And we're all gathered here together in this venue at this time, but it really does speak, in my mind, to a need for ongoing collaboration. So we learn from the best practices. You each learn from your own best practices. We're learning from your best practices. There's some kind of sharing in a collaborative and collective and strategic way, I think would be extremely valuable for all of us, actually.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. I agree. Oh, there's
Cynthia up at the top.
Quick question, and maybe it's for everybody. I'll take the microphone. Hi. Cynthia Bishop from McMaster University. So all of our programs require our students and employers either to sign contracts, to fulfill certain obligations throughout the term, and it's sounding like through the program, each of you are also requiring the employer and the students to do certain activities. Any feedback from those two groups in terms of one person's asking me for something, another group's asking me for something else?
Sure, yeah. We actually haven't had any employers or students complain about it. So that's been the positive thing. I actually have learned that a lot of our process is quite similar to what some of the co-op departments are doing, but employers have been more than happy to fill out the data, and I think maybe because we're approaching it from different perspectives, maybe it's less repetitive than what we actually think it sounds like it could be. But I'd be interested to see from co-op departments what's being required, so that just to compare and to get a good understanding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next we have Lavish from Mars Discovery District, and I made sure not to just say you were from Mars, because I'm sure that that's how you get introduced often.
Thank you, Cara, for the introductions. Yes. So that's one of the pretty cool things of working with Mars, that you deliver a shock value to others and you say, I'm Lavish from Mars, and people look at you from top to bottom and say, really? So, yeah. And I was looking at, one of the things that you said, that we all work, we have similar work, but we are so different, and I was thinking of it in my own context. So I know, many of you have been at Mars, and you've contributed towards the work that we've done, and Mars is what Mars today because of the folks like you. But people who haven't been to Mars, just a quick introduction. Mars is an acronym for Medical and Related Sciences, because that's how we started back in 2000. We started as a health incubator. But over the last 18 years, since 2000, we have now diversified into other sectors. So besides health, we now work in fintech, which is finance and commerce. We work in clean tech, which is energy and environment. And we work with a group of company called Enterprise, which are essentially a group of companies that work in, that are in work and learning space. So these are the 4 sectors that we work with. We are proudly the largest innovation hub in the world. We operate out of a massive 1.75 million square feet of space in downtown Toronto. We are also the largest incubator. We work with 1,300 companies. We start working with companies when they are at an ideation stage. That is, they don't even have a viable product when they come to us. And we work with them till they are $500 million in annual revenue. So that's a wide spectrum. And on the other end of the spectrum is also our corporate partners. So Samsung drives its artificial intelligence from our premises. We have RBC's Borealis AI initiative that happens from where we are. There are smaller companies like Molecule Light. I doubt if any one of you have heard about it, but they're producing a handheld device which can, with a drop of blood, they can identify and diagnose 200 blood disorders. So imagine that in the remote areas of Asia and Africa, how transformational it can be. If you think that blockchain is the future, we have, and we work with a company called Nuco, which is thinking of what lies ahead for blockchain. So they're thinking of future of future. And there are many success stories like this. I can go on and on. So as an organization, we are a non-profit company, so we started working on this particular project in November. So we came on board in November, and by the time my manager hired me and I hired my team, it was January. So from January, we officially started running for this project. And thanks for ESDC for all the support, especially Sarah. She has been phenomenal support. So the mandate that we have is 400 placements a year, which we now realize that it's too small for the kind of work that we do. We work with all the streams, STEM and business, and we are not really restricted to one stream. And before we began, drafting the program, and we thought that what is it that MAS really stands for? So there are parameters that were given to us in terms of how we have to deliver the program, but we said that there have to be some cornerstones of how the program is. So we said that accessibility is going to be one of the cornerstones. So accessibility not only in terms of how the positions are accessible to students, but even the employers. So the program is not restricted to MAS ventures or ventures that are in MAS ecosystem. We have reached out from east to west coast to companies with all the might that we have at our disposal. We work with the universities, the colleges. We work with the incubation hubs that these schools have. Then we also work with the innovation hubs that are present in various provinces, and we try to get companies on board from a diverse geographic regions. It's just that we find it difficult because the companies don't respond, the incubation hubs don't respond, and it's so difficult to get into the universities and access their innovation hubs. The second cornerstone that we thought that is going to be relevant for all of us is going to be the capability. So capability, again, one is making the student capable of making them aware of what a fast growth or a high growth company is all about. There is ambiguity because the orientation is not processes, the orientation is growth for these companies. So how do you make the most out of the ambiguity that is around you? So either let the ambiguity take over you, or you take over the ambiguity and make sense of how to navigate the system. And second is also increasing the capability of the employers, because these employers are not really people who have got 20 years of experience of managing students. So we work with co-op offices to deliver a student engagement workshop for employers. And I would really invite the co-op offices that are in this room to really get engaged with us so that we are able to help educate the employers on how to meaningfully engage the students. The third that we thought, which is going to be the key cornerstone of the program is going to be transparency. We thought about fairness first, but then we thought that what fairness means to me may not mean to you. So fairness is really subjective, and we thought, we'll make the entire process transparent. So all the positions that we have are on the website. So what we do is we source the positions from the employers. How we hire employees is on a first-come, first-served basis, because there's no other way that, given the deadlines that we have to disburse an X amount of dollars, there is no other way that we make sure that all the provinces are equally represented. But we have given a call to all the companies from east to west coast, and we are happy to also work with employers to get them engaged even at a later stage. So what we do is we reduce the amount of positions that we have sanctioned for one particular employer earlier, so that we are able to accommodate more employers later, and we have that diversity. So what it does is also that, one, it makes breaks the siloed relationships of many employers with one university or two universities, and it allows access to all the universities and colleges nationally to apply for those positions. So the students can apply. And what it does to the companies that work with us is that it helps them sift through the best talent. So rather than looking at talent from 1 or 2 universities, they now have access to the best talent or the top talent from around the nation. The first year numbers look something like this. We have a mandate of doing 125 position or funding 125 opportunities. We kick-started in January. The first cohort was May, and the size of the cohort that we had was 44. The second cohort is going to be the balanced number of, whatever that number is, 125 minus 44, is going to be our second cohort in September. The second year mandate is 125, and the third year mandate is 150 opportunities. So given the kind of work that we have done and given the pipeline that we have, so instead of 400 opportunities, we have already lined up about 550 opportunities. There are employers who are waiting to get in to the program, but we have reached our capacity. So we're really trying to get ESDC convinced to increase that limit. I know some other folks are doing that as well. So these are some of the companies that work with us on this program. As you can see, there are companies that you might know, there are companies that you might not know, but they're all doing incredible work in terms of the innovation and driving the innovation, not only for GTA and Ontario, but for the entire country. So some analytics, I'm not going to give you any conclusions, but I'm going to trust your wiser minds to draw your conclusions. We had 45 roles. We filled in 44 out of the 45 because one position was withdrawn. For 44 positions, we opened the applications for 2 weeks, given the deadlines that we were working with, and we received about 2,800 applications. We presently work with 31 employers. There are many more employers who are waiting to get in, but we don't have the capacity. And this is how the numbers are broken up. Although we have other tracking mechanisms, but this is what it is prescribed, or how ESDC or how the government looks at the numbers. So at the application stage, there are 47% of underrepresented students who applied, but the ones who got hired were 52%. And then these are the other numbers. I'm happy to take questions. I'm being given 2 signals already that I'm over time. Questions for me?
Any questions? Okay, so we'll move on to the last presentation, and then we hopefully I'll have some time. If not, there's a fairly big break as well. So the panelists will be here to answer questions as well. Thank you. Oh, Lavish, I need the microphone. Thank you. Okay, and lastly, we'd like to invite Gina from Venture Canada to come forward.
Okay. Just in case. Hi there. So we know from RBC's Humans Wanted report that more than half of Canadian jobs are going to be automated in the next 10 years. And the Business Council of Canada also tells us that now more than ever, youth require a nimbleness and entrepreneurial outlooks in order to succeed. So Venture for Canada's mission is to develop entrepreneurial leaders in Canada. We are a national charitable organization now. We are 5 years old. And our flagship program, which was begun by our CEO, Scott Starrett, in 2013, recruits and trains high-performing entrepreneurial recent grads and puts them in 4 weeks of training camp at Queen's University. And then they go through 2-year placements with startups around the country. Over 250 fellows have gone through our program. And that program is funded in part by sponsors and also by the companies themselves. The companies pay us to actually find those students and place, or the grads, and place them with our companies. So the startup, we've been working in the startup space for a long time and have a very large kind of network of startups from all different sectors. And so ESDC's incredible opportunity allowed us to throw the net a little wider and introduce students to the entrepreneurial ecosystem as well. And I echo the comments made about the amazing opportunity that this conference is offering to the delivery agents. This is the first time that we have all met each other in the same room for the work placement SWPP program. And I am delighted for that, and we have committed to connecting once a month to be able to share best practices, at least starting with each other. And then ideally, I agree with your comment about being able to work with the co-op offices. So we launched in May. Well, actually, I was hired in April, and before I even started working, I actually did a speech for the launch of the program. And then I had to furnish my office, hire my team, and launch my program. And so we are in the very early stages compared to my colleagues up here. So the whole goal for us is we are very focused on Atlantic Canada. So we have 3 main ingredients to our program, and those are skills development, building the talent pipeline, so the green one, and then partnerships. So our overall goal, and I'll get into the numbers in a minute, is increasing the job readiness of 1,000 grads who are available to Atlantic Canadian SMEs. So the first one, the talent development, skill building, essentially. We have 3 different ways that we are working. We are essentially a training organization. That is what we specialize in. And we have 3 ways that students and employers are interacting with us on this level. We have what's called an innovation jam, which is a hackathon model that we are using as a recruitment tool and a selection process for the students that we accept into each cohort. We also have a training camp that every cohort goes through. So every student that is selected for each of the 3 cohorts, they start September, January, and May, goes through a 2-day intensive training camp. And then we have ongoing training for the students and for the employers through webinars and sometimes in-person events that happen throughout the actual placement, internship placement. So those provide a container for us to be able to really build the entrepreneurial skill sets that we're looking for: self-sufficiency, teamwork, creativity, innovation, adaptability. They also provide a vehicle, as I said, for recruitment and selection. And they provide us the ability to build the knowledge network for these students, which is hugely important. So at the Innovation Jam, there are coaches from all different sectors. It could be that we had the CEO of a small film production company to a director at a very large marketing firm. They are there to help the students. It's an incredibly supportive environment for them to be in. The actual internships are any length of time. Most of them, because we're working very closely with the co-op offices in Atlantic Canada, the first thing we did is get in touch with as many co-op offices as we could to learn what is happening currently and how we can support the co-op offices. What are their pain points? How can we fill those? How can we be synergistic with what is already going on and add to the process? Is that the end? That we should have done that as like the actual cutoff. And regional collaborations. So sustainability, like Gina said, there's 2 Ginas up here, isn't that cool? are really important to us for so the partnerships are important for the sustainability. So when we're gone, when our money is done, what is left? And in our ideal world, what is left in the sort of short term is that new companies, small companies, have a connection to co-op, understand how to access talent, and understand how to access potential funding that is out there. They have a really hard time with keeping up with all of that. In terms of the actual numbers, so I said 1,000 students, 505 of those will be going through, well, roughly. There's 505 positions worth 4 months, so that could flex a bit depending on whether we're working, especially in the college system, where sometimes those will be 5 or 6 week internships. 495 will be participating through the Innovation Jams. Each student gets a minimum of 20 hours of training in the actual internship placement. And then we have a steering committee. The quality of the placements is incredibly important to us, so it is a competitive process. We are looking for placements that have an innovation component. That's broad, but there's ways, rubrics that we have for understanding what that means. And the student has to be doing something that is contributing to the core growth and development of the business. So let me just look at this stat. So 98% of the employers who are going to be in this cohort have under 50 employees, and 69% of them have under 10. We are really trying to focus on, we don't cap the number, but we are really trying to focus on sort of the startup, high growth potential companies in Atlantic Canada. We have, across Atlantic Canada, 2.5 million people, 120,000 students. We have altogether as a region an amazing cohort of talent, an incredible diversity of very passionate, connected companies. And so what we really want to see is that those companies have access. One of the biggest barriers to growth within an acceleration within companies we know across Canada is access to strong talent. And big businesses, 83% of big businesses have deep relationships with the universities and colleges. They understand that that's how you get the talent. And it's very hard for small companies to compete on that level. And so what we're trying to do is bridge that gap between those small companies and those universities and develop workforce attachment to Atlantic Canadian businesses so that sometimes it's hard for them to compete on salary, but they can compete on other levels. And if they've already developed that connection with those students, then that's a win for us. So in terms of, I've already really gone through this. Really, our long-term outcomes are student retention in our region, that SMEs have access to a very strong, high-quality talent pipeline, and the sustainability of these work-integrated learning placements, as in the long-term aspect of it. Diversity is huge for Venture for Canada. A very strong priority for Venture for Canada is the inclusion of the LGBTQ community. Our CEO just won the TELUS LGBTQ Innovator of the Year award. That runs throughout our fellowship program, and it also applies to our current program. With our Innovation Jam, we were finding a week before the jam, it was skewing heavily male. 80% of the participants who had signed up were men. We pulled all of our advertising. We changed our social media advertising to highlight and profile the women who were going to actually be speaking and coaching there. And by the following Friday when it started, we had 50-50 women and men. Thank you. So the last thing I'll just say is the lesson I'm learning and I'm going to be testing is how can we, with all of the other underrepresented groups that we're trying to access, how can we be demonstrating that they are reflected in the programming we're offering? So in of the employers that we have, how can we be profiling those that have disabilities, those that have various barriers to professional growth? So I think that's going to be interesting. We're going to be piloting that and testing that and evaluating that. And lastly, I think the I used to work for an organization that ran a very large Indigenous internship program that was extremely successful. What we learned from that is it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of trust. And you can't just do it like that. And so I think all of us are working on that issue, and I'm really excited to work over the next couple of years on how we can make this about and for the Indigenous populations, both employers and students. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
I know that we are trying to stay on schedule, but I also want to be fair that we wanted to have some questions. So if there is somebody who has a burning question right now outside of wanting to come up and speak individually, for Gina before she walks away, is there a question that somebody has for Gina about the program?
Gina, Tony Slave, the College of North Atlantic. It's not really a question, it's actually more of a comment and actually a learning for everyone. I was fortunate enough to be able to send 7 of my students over to the Innovation Gem. For those students, it was literally life-changing for 3 days. For those students, they had no idea that they had these interests. The skill development that they gained in those 3 days, every organization here could benefit from your best practices for that. So it's really a general comment and a compliment back to your organization.
Thank you, and thank you to the College of the North Atlantic. They are becoming a really fast partner of ours, and they actually topped up the travel subsidy for those students so that they could afford to come. We gave them $300, the college gave them the rest. So it was a moving experience. We had no idea the community that was going to be built out of that 3 days. That was an unintended outcome. They all started their own Facebook page so they could all be together. I mean, and it was, I'm really interested in documenting kind of what happens in those and what part of work integrated learning, what part it plays in this process. So thank you. Yeah. Yeah, and it was beautiful in terms of also skill building and adaptability because it was a marketing challenge. They didn't know what the challenge was. They all came in blind. We put them in their own teams that we chose. The team that won were 4 engineering students and 2 computer science students. They had no marketing background, and they just knocked it out of the park. So like adaptability and cross transferable skill sets and all of that were an interesting outcome.
Thank you. So just to reiterate, I know there's a lot of information. We were trying to get that information out in a very short period, but also an expanded period of time. So thank you to Natalie for expanding this because originally it was supposed to be an hour. But I want to not only thank the panelists for coming and sharing with us because I had the opportunity to sit with them last night and we had great dialogue about the program and just from different perspectives why things are the certain way they are. So if you have those why questions, please feel free to come up and talk with them. And I think just overall, we are so thankful for this money, being able to expand the initiatives, and it truly has been a blessing across Canada that we've been able to increase the number of work integrated learning opportunities, and we look forward to partnering all together to make sure we continue to do this in a really quality and efficient way. So thank you again and enjoy the rest of your day.